Out here, let us start with Testng. Till now we have only seen Selenium commands, how Selenium interacts with the browsers. We have not seen how to build test cases. And sorry guys, that's what we will be seeing now, that how to build the test cases. I'll create a new Java project known as Testng Selenium. It's on day 8 itself. Inside the source folder, I'll create a new package known as test cases. Okay, this package will hold your test cases. Right. I'll create a new class known as login test. Now, how do we build the test case? The first thing is that to use Testng, you have to install Testng as a plugin. Before building the login test, you have to install Testng inside Eclipse. So you have to go to Google and type Testng Eclipse. Go to the first link and click on install the plugin, and this is the link. You copy this link. Alright, I'll paste this link over here as well and go to help, install new software in Eclipse, paste the URL, hit the enter button. Okay, and hold on, it will take time. I'll cancel this. It loads up everything, fetching children of Testng 15%. It loads everything. You have to click on the next buttons and you have to install Testng. Right, once you have installed Testng, you can go to Windows, Show, View, Other, and under Java, you will be able to see Testng. Okay. Right. Now, in Testng, there is no main function. Alright. There are annotations in Testng. Alright, @test annotation and other annotations. You can create an annotation @test public void login test. Okay. And you move the mouse over this error and add the Testng library in the project. You get this option. And you can import the test annotations. Alright. Fine. And this function over here will become your test case. Okay. This function with the annotation @test will become your test case. You can write over here system.out.println login test. And when you run this code, you can run it, you can right click on it and you can get the option run as Testng test as well. And you will get the result like this. Total test runs are 1, failures are 0 and skips are 0. Okay. And it will clearly tell you login test is passed. You will also get a section like this, results of running the login test. Okay, you see this is passing. Fine. Okay. Similarly, I can have another test case, for example, public void send mail. So you can have multiple test cases inside a single Java file. Okay, you can print over here sending mail. You can print over here logging out. And when you run this code, it prints login test, logging out, and sending mail. It executes all the test cases, but the order is not same. Sending mail should be executed before logging out. Okay, send mail test has to be executed before logging out of the system. So you have to prioritize your test cases out here. Don't think the order will be from top to bottom. That is never going to happen. Yes, all the test cases have @test annotation. Okay, you can prioritize the test cases. You can write priority equals to 1, priority equals to 2, priority equals to 3. Okay, right. So 1 will be executed first, 2 after that, and 3 after that. So when you run this, you see that total test cases are 3, failures are 0. Okay, right. And they are executed in the same order: login test, then send email, then logout. All right, fine. Now, at times you have to do validations. How do you fail the test case? All right. Over here, I'll create a new class known as validations example. How do you pass or fail the test cases? I'll take @test annotation, public void, say any test, app test. Okay. And I will import it. Fine. And I will print over here, or I will look what is testing. If you have to validate something in testing, there is a actual value, there is a expected value. We have to compare the actual value with the expected value, and then you have to move forward. Okay, you have to have the actual value and the expected value. We have to compare both of them. The actual value you will get from the application using Selenium. For example, the text on the web page driver.findelement.getText or something. Expected value you can keep in an Excel file or a properties file, which we just saw how to read them. So in testing, you have to compare both these values. Alright, to compare these values, we use assertions. There is a class known as assert in Testng. You move your mouse over this assert and import org.testng.assert. At times people import assert from JUnit. Okay. Make sure you import assert from Testng. And you can write assert equals. You can compare actual and expected values with this. Okay. You can put your actual value. You can keep expected value. And you can run this. If I say actual value is A and expected is also A, if you run this test is going to pass. But if both of them they don't match, actual is A and expected is A1, and if both of them don't match, then you will get a failure. Expected A1 but found A. One more thing guys, if you refresh your project, you will get a test output folder. This test output folder contains the default Testng reports. Okay. If you right click on it, go to properties and open index.html. Right. It will say expected was A1, but what we found was A. Okay. Right. So assert equals will compare two values. There is something known as, and one more thing guys, this report is not so good. Okay, it's not having very good features, so we will not be using this report. We will be using better reports known as extent reports. All right. And there is another type of assertion known as assert true. In this, you give a certain message, a condition like 4 greater than 2. So 4 greater than 2 is a condition. It should evaluate to true or false. And this message is nothing but an error message. Now, what does this assertion means? The condition should evaluate to true or false. If I run this code, it will pass the assertion. The test will pass. If I write 4 greater than 12, this will evaluate to false and the test will fail. Okay, and whatever is the error message will come up out here. Error message expected true but found false. So assert true wants that there should be some condition out here. If the condition evaluates to true, then the assertion will pass. However, if the condition evaluates to false, then the assertion will fail and this error message will be thrown. When do we use this? Remember, we had made a function. We had made a function like earlier. We had made a function, say is element present. You used to send the XPath of the element over here and it used to return you true or false. So if it returns you false, then you can throw an error message over here, something like element not found. So you can use it over there. We had made this function earlier in the training, right? So you can put a condition. Sometimes while running the test cases, you are in a situation where you know that the test has 100% failed. For example, a link on the web page should not have been present and that is present. Or after clicking on a link, you are on an entirely different web page. Or after entering a user ID and password, valid user ID and password, you are still not able to log in. Something like that. So you have to deliberately fail the test over there. For that, we use the function assert.fail. This will fail the test case directly without checking anything. You can also give the error message over here. Alright. And it will fail the test case. Whatever is the error message will come up over here. Sometimes you have to skip the test case. If you are running 100 test cases in a batch and you out of 100 you just want to run 20, you have to skip 80. So this line throw new skip exception will skip the test case. Okay, Testng is not made by Selenium. It is used in Selenium. Testng is entirely different. Okay. So if you look at the result, it is skipping the test case. Alright. Fine. Now, this is done. Anybody else with any questions? Anybody with questions? Okay. In the @test annotation, you can give this line. I'll tell you when we do the frameworks, I will tell you how actually you do it. Alright. But for time being, understand that this line can skip the test case. Okay. In this login test, we had three test cases. Login test, send mail, and logout. Suppose if I fail the login test, and if I run this code, it will fail the login test, but it will execute the other two test cases successfully, which is wrong. The other two test cases should not be executed, or rather they should be skipped if the login test is failing. So you have to make those two test cases dependent on this test case. You can introduce dependency in Testng. You can write over here in send mail test that this test case depends on methods login test, and logout test depends on the method login test and send mail. So the logout test case is dependent on two test cases, two methods, login test and send mail is dependent on login test. So when you run this code, if login test fails, the other two will also be skipped. Okay, right. So you can introduce dependency among the test cases. You can prioritize the test cases. You can introduce dependencies, right? Sometimes, look, I'll tell you, if I'm using assertions, if I write, sorry, over here A and if I write out here B, right? And you run the test. This will fail the test on this line, and you will see that it writes A, it fails, it never prints B. So if an assertion is failing, the program will stop on this line. Sometimes you don't want the program to stop on this line. Sometimes the error is not so critical that you have to make the program stop on this line. Okay. Over there we use soft assertion. Right? We use soft assertions. Now what are soft assertions? Let's take a 5 minutes break, and after 5 minutes break I will tell you what soft assertions are. Okay. Fine. So out here you have to use soft assertions at time, because the assertion, if it fails, it stops the program. You don't want it to stop. So there is a provisioning for soft assertions also in Testng. Okay. @test public void app test. Okay. And you can print A, B. Now in Selenium there is a class known as soft assert. You create the object of this class. Okay. And then write soft assert dot say assert equals. You compare X with Y. Alright. Then you can also write the same thing, soft assert dot fail. Failing because of some reason. So all these errors will be reported. Soft assertion doesn't stop the execution of the program. Only thing is, in the end you have to write soft assert dot assert all. If something is failing, then the control will stop on this line. But these all will be actually executed in multiple failures in a single test can be reported. Okay, if I run this code, you will see that it fails, and following assert fails null and some reason. It's just printing nulls just like that. Okay, these two values, they did not match. Alright, so soft assertions will prevent the code from stopping at a particular line, like assertions. When you use assertions, okay, assertions stop the execution. Soft assertions will not stop the execution. Alright. Fine. Now, we will use everything in the framework. We will be using everything. Now, there are other annotations in Testng as well. There are other annotations in Testng. For example, there is an annotation @before test. Hold on. Then there is an annotation @after test. Okay. In before test, you can write over here before executing the test. In after test, you can write after executing the test. So before test and after test annotation, they are executed before and after executing all the test cases. There is a predefined order which controls that. No matter where you position these annotations, it doesn't matter. When you run this code, it prints before executing the test, after executing the test, and in between login test, sending mail, and logging out. Okay, right. So before test and after test are executed before and after executing the test. Then there is before method annotation. Okay, I will write over here before method, and there is an annotation after method. Okay, right. And when you run this test, before and after method will be executed before and after running every test. Suppose you want to run every test in different browsers. So in before method you can open the browser. In after method you can close the browser. You can do something like this. So the order is predefined for these annotations. Okay. There is one more annotation. Suppose if you want to run the test with multiple sets of data, with different sets of data if you want to run the test. For example, I have a new class known as registration test. Okay, and I write the annotation method at the rate test public void to register. So this is the registration test. Okay, I want to register or I want to run the test multiple times with different user IDs and passwords. So what we do over here is that we take a two-dimensional array. Okay, this two-dimensional array has got just a minute. Let me take this in. Just a minute. Yeah, out here I'll take. It's got multiple columns and multiple rows. Okay, you keep the data in this grid. Alright, you actually the number of rows are equal to a number of times you want to run the test, and number of columns are equal to number of parameters in the test case. Okay, for example, the first set of data will come in the first row, the username, then password, alright, the email ID. The second set of data will come in the second row. Every cell has a number. The first cell is 00, the second cell is 01, the third cell is 02, like this. Out here this is 10, 11, 12, like this. Okay, fine. Now how do we do it? What we do is that we use an annotation known as @data provider. This annotation helps you to run the test multiple times. The first step, there are three steps. The first step is that you make this data provider annotation. It will return you a two-dimensional object array. You create this two-dimensional object array inside this, known as data. with say 3 rows and 2 columns. Okay, right. So you fill the data like this. You first row, the first parameter is number of rows, second parameter is number of columns. You can write over here data 0. 0 is some, you can put some dummy data, user 1, password 1. So you have to create 3 rows because in this object array there are 3 rows. First row, second row, and third row. Okay, right. And then you return data. So you make this data provider annotation and you create a two-dimensional object array in it. You fill the data in this two-dimensional object array and you return the data. This is the first step. Second step is that you have to link the test case with the data provider. You have to mention in the test that this is your data provider. The test case should be knowing that from where the data is coming, right? So you write over here, data provider is get data. And the third step is that number of input parameters in the function should be same as the number of columns. If there are 2 columns, then you should have 2 input parameters. If you have 3 columns, you have to have 3 input parameters. Basically, the column decides the number of parameters in the test. And that's it. Now, when Testng will run this test case, it will understand that fine, the data for this test is coming from this function. It will go inside the function, it will realize that fine, I have to run the test case 3 times. So it will invoke this test case automatically 3 times. First it will invoke with this set of data, then it will invoke with this set of data, and after that it will invoke it with this set of data. So when you run this code, you see the test will run U1, P1, U2, P2, P3. It will run with 3 sets of data. Okay, right. I hope you have got my point. Right? Now people at times make mistakes. They give say 2 parameters over here and while writing the test they just give 1. So if I look at the, hold on, I did not show you the result. The result of the previous run, it executed 3 times. Okay, right. Now at times people, they do a mistake, like they write 1 parameter although there are 2 columns, and when you run this you get a configuration failure. Look, you will get it, you get a failure, and it clearly says data provider is trying to pass 2 parameters but the method takes 1. Alright, so you have to be careful about this thing. Okay, now as far as Excel is concerned, later on, instead of putting the data, hard coding the data inside this 2-dimensional data array, we will read the data from the Excel file and we will be putting it inside this array. Okay, right, when we do the framework. Now the next thing is framework. Look, Lakshmi, JUnit and Testng, they're quite same. Commands and all are same, but Selenium is best supported on Testng. Testng executes parallel execution in a way better way, and it's most widely used with Selenium. Okay, that is. Otherwise, annotations and all, they are similar and all, everything is similar. All right. Now you can also run these tests together in a batch. Like these are individual Java files, I can execute them individually, but I can also run them together. For running them together, you have a file known as testng.xml. In this XML file, you can mention all the test cases. That is, the first test is, okay, there are various test sections in this. You can specify the name of this test suite. Okay. And you can add multiple test cases. The test name, this test name, you can put any name. It doesn't matter. Whatever is the name, it will come in the reports. The class name has to be correct. The class name is inside the test cases package. We have the login test. Then we can have second is the registration test. That is inside the test cases package. Registration test. Then we have the soft assertions class, which I had taken. Okay. And you can write over here. This name has to be correct. It is case sensitive. Okay. And then you have validations example. It is inside the test cases package. Validations example. So when you right click on that XML file and run it as a testng suite, so it runs all the tests together.